What's up, everyone? I'm Fang, and today we're going to be talking about the Gum Lab in pretty great detail. So, the obvious problems with it are that people recognize that it's pay to win. There's a barrier for entry, right? New players are pretty far off from maxing these things out. And I don't entirely think all of that. I think it's pretty reasonable with how little the requirement is to actually level up the skills. For medals, it doesn't take too many medals, especially compared to the frequency that we're getting medals is pretty high weekly. And then if you're just playing the game, you're getting enough. Definitely in comparison to Shinobi cards, it's way easier to max them out. As you can see, I have one maxed out. I think I have another on here, another two, right? So, it's not that much, right? In reality, it really isn't. And this is, I think I bought the $40 pack. So you can pretty much spec into what you want, right? And so that's also what's pretty key detail in this is that you can choose what weapon you're kind of crafting this set to, right? Ultimately, you want to probably max it out for your main weapon, right? But for offshoot weapons that you play every once in a while that you want to kind of use, right? You can use something like this is mainly for drumbeat, right? I'm not going to be using I use the wide a little bit now that it's better, but I'm not using the back attack for damage, right? So obviously there's no point in me speccing into this or even break attack damage. I don't really worry about that, right? And so that doesn't really have a big deal. I don't think people are going to get set back too far, right? If you're going to spec into a weapon, you just need to go for its bread and butter, right? A forward combo, I'm pretty sure forward normal attack is going to apply to everything. And anyways, you can always use these ones to kind of spec all around, right? So progression versus pay to win. That, you could, if you're going to buy Jala, right, I think ultimately you're going to get some value out of it for the research lab. And that's just going to go with what they're releasing, right? And I think if you're spending more money, right, if people are spending money to max this out, that's good for the general player base because that means we're getting more spending money going. The devs are actually spending more money to go into better collabs, right? And better collabs mean more players, and it just cycles in, right? So not necessarily a bad thing in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, people will have their arguments about progression, right? But I would just say spec into what you use, right? If you're not using a wide attack or a back attack on a certain weapon, right? Why even spec into it, right? You don't need to worry about that. Just focus on what you're going to use, and that's going to make your main kit just that much better, right? The next thing I want to go into is endgame offsets. So some things that you can see, these are the two prime examples are gumbind duration and gumbind duration down, right? So one lengthens the time you put someone in a gumbind and the other takes it down, right? So this essentially nullifies itself within the research lab. So if you max one and the other, if both players have a max or even 5%, it's not going to be that much different, right? If you take how long you're actually bound for and then look at 5% of it or 10% of it, 10% of a second is 10 milliseconds, right? So it's really not that, maybe at most it's going to be 3 seconds. So 0.3 milliseconds, right? Correct me if my time's wrong, but I'm pretty sure 0.30 milliseconds. Sorry, there you go. But it's still pretty negligible, right? So that's not going to really matter. The damage increases are going to actually matter because if you're using a full kit, you're going to have overall more damage. The life one, it doesn't exactly nullify the damage, right? Damage is still going to be stronger ultimately, right? and this damage only applies to opponents, right? The drone damage is separate. And I mean, this is going to be one that matters, and also the ninjutsu damage, right? Ninjutsu damage, scaling to the damage of the ninjutsu. Obviously, those with like more burst power are going to have more damage. So I think in things like tornado, things like the horse, and maybe like rocket, things with a lot of damage initially are going to have a higher impact. Whereas things like Mixer, I mean, Mixer got a big buff, but is still probably going to be strong, even with the damage increase, right? So that's pretty significant, actually, just all the way throughout the game. And I think the significance of this mainly focusing on damage increases, and the S energy increase, is to make it so the game is just faster, right? Speeding up the game makes it so that drones are taken more often. And when drones are taken more often, that essentially means people need to do something other than hit drones, right? I mean, they could run away, but more people are going to be inclined to fight, right? And then, like, some people wouldn't fight because third partying is a big thing, right? And so that also goes into third partying, and like being able to third party someone was kind of an issue for a couple players, like a decent amount of the player base, right? People would get pissed when they get third partied. But if you're doing more damage, you're going to kill the person you're fighting, quicker, right? So that means you're not sitting through a long chain combo, right? You're able to just gunbind them, kill them, and then move on. And so people are going to be more inclined to fight, which is actually, like, it kind of solves the drone issue, right? I mean, in theory, right? Obviously, we're going to have to see how it plays out and how it really takes a turn, but I could see it playing out that way and actually being a good way to prevent droners from just droning all the time, you know? People are going to be more inclined to fight because they can kill people faster and don't worry about third parties. The future of labs, ultimately, like I said, it has a big focus on damage and increasing damage, right? Like cooldown, damage, you know? Literally everything gives you like more damage, right? More damage from shinobi cards, right? And that's pretty significant because they want to speed the game up. So I don't see the future of the labs being defensive as much, right? They might just throw in this life one, which ultimately it's going to have a bigger impact on the weapons that already have more life, such as hammers, right? But it's also going to, yeah, yo-yos are still going to die as fast, you know? That's yo-yos are squishy, but biggest significance is going to be the hammers. So we'll have to see how that goes, actually. And I think there is a lot of room for like development, right? There's so much they can do with the labs. And I think the fact that they made everything so cheap in the labs, like you're able to max a lot of things quickly. And I think they want it that way. That way people players are using it and actually trying to like be creative, right? Ultimately, it's going to come down to this season is like a developmental phase, right? It's the early phase. They're going to see how it's impacting players, right? If people are enjoying or even just playing the game more, right? And who knows, like we could see something as a cap, right? A equipment cap similar to the shinobi cards where you have maybe only 5 skills you can take, right? And so, or maybe you have to go down a tree and you can only have certain skills, right? And so that's definitely like plausible, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility of like actually kind of putting the player at their specific skill or how they want to play the game, right? They want to make it more tailored to the player experience. And again, it's very early into development. I mean, I don't know, it hasn't even been a week yet and people are hating on this, but I think just keep an open mind. I think there's going to be a lot to see and see how this affects the meta. I know I talked a lot mainly pertaining to BR. That's just because I'm a BR player, but I think in teams it's going to have a pretty significant impact too. Just because you're going to be able to dispose of like other team members. If you have two people on one person, right, then they're just going to disappear, right? And so like kind of makes it a lot faster. I don't know if they're planned to. They're probably not going to increase the respawn speed because they want it like that. But I could see that being like a trait they even add later down the line. I'm sure there's literally like infinite possibilities what they could add in this. Like they're already going to plan to make it so you can equip different specials, like charging slash onto like scrap saber. So there's a lot of potential, a lot of different kind of things that need to develop, and only time will tell. This is the first couple days of it, so don't get too discouraged, y'all. We'll see how it plays out. There are some good things that it does bring. All right, I'm gonna head off. Peace.